Hi YouTube, AC Dodd here, and this time a little video on how to change piston cushions in SU carburetors. So on the bench in front of me, I've got a couple of SU carbs I'm rebuilding at the moment. So these are just a pair of HS4s for an MGB, and we got to the point where I need to sort the piston cushions out. So I thought I'd do a little video just to show you one way of actually changing those, because there are, there's more than one, like any typical engineering activity. So firstly, what is a piston cushion? Well, if you look at the bottom of this carburettor here, you will see that is a piece of plastic material which basically stops the piston hitting the bridge of the carburettor when it comes down. So to that end, I'll put that in there and then we can see what we're looking at. All right, so if we move that piston up and let it fall down, we can hear it hit the bridge. Now, if it didn't have that piece of plastic, it would make a metal to metal contact, which wouldn't be very good. So what we now need to do is to obviously change that. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because there is actually a critical height, okay? So when that piston is in the carburettor, that piston needs to be above the bridge by a certain amount. Now, if we look in there, we can see that that piston, there's only a tiny amount of light getting through the bottom there, and that's because this is just a fraction under the 0.008 of an inch, which is the minimum setting. So what I'm going to do here is replace that piston cushion to increase that setting to match this one. So this one has a better piston cushion. You can see it's sat out nice and proud, and that is approximately 12 thousandths of an inch. Now, if I'm building a set of twin carbs, the trick to building a set of twins is everything's got to be the same. So I need the same setting on this as I do on this one. So the tool we're going to use is the pillar drill, and here's the piston, and then we can have a close look at the cushion, and you can see there it's quite squashed over and almost flush. So it's very simple. All we're going to do is use a 4.5mm drill bit, and we're just going to run that straight in. What we're not going to do is keep drilling all the way through the aluminium. We're only just going to push that in until that gently bottoms out. You can feel that when it goes in and touches the aluminium, and when we lift the drill out, it will pull the piston cushion out. So let's get on with it. So that's gone all the way down. As we can see, it's taken the middle out, so I'll just get a pair of pliers and pull that straight out. Just bring in a pair of pliers, nip it on the end, and then it should just come straight out, no problem at all. And as we can see, it's we haven't gone too far into the aluminium, just touched the bottom, and more importantly, we've not touched the sides at all, and that's important because we don't want to make the hole too large to be able to put the new cushion in. For those of you who haven't seen one of these before, that's a piston cushion. These are available from Berlin Fuel Systems, and the part number is on the bottom of the screen, and they cost about, I think currently 50p each or something like that. So yeah, not very expensive, and yeah, a bit silly if you don't really replace it, really, in my view. But anyway, there we go. Fitting the new cushion couldn't be simpler. We just take the new cushion, we put it gently into the hole, and then we just drift it in with a copper mallet. This is easier if your end of your copper mallet is relatively flat like this one, so you just knock it straight in. There we go, no problem at all the way down. That's ready for machining. So what I've done here is we're going to use the lathe to machine this item. So I've mounted the piston in the chuck, made sure that's running true. I've also set my tool off the face of the work to give me the appropriate height. So in this particular case, we're going to machine across there. I'm just going to do it in one pass, and I'm going to machine that to about 12 thousandths per hour. So let's get that done. Nothing clever about this, we just wind it straight past. And you can hardly see anything come off because it's such a small cut. And that's it done. And the only thing you'll notice there is that's picked up some phrases. So before we can put that in, we've got to clean that off. So let's go over to the bench and get that done. So, piston cushioning. Just use the Stanley knife blade just to take off the phrases. Just hit the top of it with a file just to make it nice and smooth. Now we'll put it in and actually check and make sure we've got the required height. So, checks are done with the piston installed on the top of the carburettor, and we just put the feeler blade basically under the piston. But what we don't want to happen is that when it's under the piston and between the bridge and the piston, I can just feel a slight drag, but when it comes out, no movement of the piston. So that is exactly 12 thousandths. So that matches the other carb perfectly, which is what we intended, and that's what we needed to do to get these carburetors to respond the same. Okay, so a simple little process there. You might be wondering why we have to bother getting them absolutely perfect. Well, there's a reason why we have to do these things, and the piston cushion basically determines the initial air gap, okay? And the initial air gap allows a certain amount of air to go through. Now, if you can imagine, on certain engines, you may not have enough airflow to actually make that piston rise, especially when you're starting and maybe idling. On these particular carburetors, if they were on, say, a smaller engine, there may be insufficient airflow to actually make those pistons rise. So there needs to be an initial amount of airflow available for the engine to obviously work. There also needs to be a certain amount of airflow and a certain gap to enable the depression over the jet to form to actually draw off any fuel. So for example, you can have a situation where the engine doesn't pull enough air to actually lift that piston, and you could have various different heights of that piston, and that would actually for a given RPM would actually speed up or decrease the airflow, and that would change the depression. If it changes the depression, it sucks more, we might have to lean off or lift the jet slightly. So what it actually does is it determines the initial response of the carburetor at very small airflow settings, and that can actually change the position of the jet and the needle and how that responds on those initial openings. So it's actually quite important to actually get those correct. Now it's not so important on a single, but it is important if you want to have the engine not stall on you, for example. So if the piston comes down and the engine revs drop and the piston comes down and actually touches the bridge, it can actually shut off the airflow and cause a stalling situation. So it is important that that comes down to that baseline gap, so it maintains airflow through the carburettor and actually prevents stalling. So they don't all do that, but definitely that will cause a stall, and I had that a few weeks ago on that tuned engine that I did, where the piston cushion was actually causing a problem, and I had to change the top half of the carburettor to actually stop that, and it did. So it is a thing, and it's not something that, you know, I'm making up. Piston cushions are important and they need to be set correctly. Now, just before I go here, SU have informed me of the sizes. There is a size difference between the HS sort of 2 and 4 and 6 and HI44. So for example, if you've got a carburettor that's normally HS2, so that's 1.25" or 1.5", that includes HS2, HS4 and HI38s. You want piston cushion height setting of 8 to 12 thou. And then if you've got the 1.75" type carburettor, so HS6, HI44, then you need to be going 10 to 14 thou. All right, I typically run around 11, 12 on all the carburetors, so it kind of doesn't really matter from that point of view. But if you're looking at a range and you're checking your carburetors, then those figures that were up on the screen is what you want to go by. And if you've got a pair of twins, same on each carburetor. Hopefully that was helpful. Apologies about the quality of the footage there, but I was in a bit of a rush to get it, and I actually used my hand, not so much on the tripod. So anyway, hope you found that useful. Please like, subscribe and share, and hype the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much.